Zach from Gravel Bike, California, in the center of the universe, ready to take on the Grizzly gravel ride. We came earlier this year with Fresno Cycling for Everyone Loves Raymond, which was exquisite in the foothills of the Sierra. Now, we're getting a little bit more mountainy with this route, as we're starting out of North Fork just on the south side of Bass Lake and here at the exact center of California. Exits the spot. Let's roll. Roads. I often wonder how they got here, especially with the vast network within the Sierra National Forest, as access to hydroelectricity and water storage has been vital for over a century, while lumber and mining have taken a step back. As we start out of North Fork, which has its roots in the mid-19th century, with Tony a proper ride organizer, with these roads being his backyard, as this nearly metric century loop had the easiest 5,500 feet of climbing put together. The North Fork Town Hall was the starting base, not just for the ride, but all things breakfast, making sure no one left on an empty stomach, as the Grizzly also offered 3 different road courses as well. And of course, the GBCers were jacked for the gravel, with an informal start matching the community vibe. 2, 1, happy gravel! There was no way avoiding a quick exit, as veering from the traffic circle was as technical as the first half was going to get. And if you passed the finer details too fast for your liking, that all ended immediately, starting on this nearly 25-mile climb, ranking as one of my longest continuous ascents ever, with the first fifth on Malin Ridge Road of the paved variety, as there was no doubt where we were or where we were headed, knowing there was no way to go but up, with the reminder that these roads can fall prey to the elements, although this was playing with house money considering this year's record downfall. I knew our turnoff to Central Camp Road was less than 5 miles in, as well as the grade was subtle for our first and longest dirt section, contrasted with the look that we were at elevation already, along with low-lying foliage riding underneath Graham Mountain. But there was an additional factor to look out early for: bugs. A lot of the geological formations were hidden underneath the forest, but riding through them is an unusual thing to naturally do, unless some modern methods were put to use. And I definitely tried doing my homework on local history before these rides, as info was extremely hard to find on this area. But GBC was convinced that there was more to this road before locating the former Minarets and Western Railway, starting with its connection down by Bass Lake that took it over 11 miles up to Central Camp as part of a larger operation with the Sugar Pine Lumber Company, but lasting only from 1923 for a decade. It's easy to understand why so little info was available, thinking who knew that 100 years later that this abandoned line would serve some other function to our benefit. It was still easy riding, and even though we were 1,000 feet above Bass Lake, we were still in the thick of climbing, not to mention our first foray deep into the pines and firs, followed back to our previous environment, begging me to ask the question if the openness was from logging or the geology. But getting back into the numbers, re-entering the shade brought us mile-high status, with still over 2,000 feet of vert left above us, making it a properly timed pit stop that was more than well stocked by Nathan and James, but Vic was eager for more great gravel for good reason. So we haven't even hit the 14-mile mark, but almost 2,800 feet of elevation. It's definitely been the steadiest climb so far. It didn't take long to find another landmark, with the turn off to Central Camp just off to our right, formerly housing hundreds below in this impressive complex, if even only for a brief time, as Little Shut-Eye Peak looks over us as it did back then, with more rock outcroppings starting to show, as well as the turn off to the shore course past mile 16, but plenty were still on hand to check out the scenery, enjoying the variety of the Western Sierra, remembering that it was a shared experience that had plenty to give. Even though the last third of this dirt was past the end of the rail portion, the grade was still consistently smooth for the duration, while still changing up the visuals, including the introduction of meadow space, and those playing an extreme round of 18, with our first dirt segment coming to a close, onto the semi-validly named Vert Road, rolling in front of Shut-Eye Peak that is shorter than its aforementioned littler one, with an 8% pitch out, our steepest so far, leading us to the highest point on the Sierra Vista Scenic Byway, coming into the Cold Spring Summit pit stop that was appropriately suited for lunch, making me feel like I got comped at a Vegas buffet, as it was easy to get a little too comfortable, soon continuing on to the other side of Vert, that after a third of a mile climb to our highest point of the day, left us with 8 miles of downhill dirt, making you thankful the climbing was front-loaded. There were a lot of smiles coming at the bottom of the dirt. Not only is this section has immaculately groomed gravel, but the beauty coming from some subtraction of trees, thanks to the convergence of sediment from these small waterways riding alongside Soquel Meadow Ranch that whets your appetite to go deeper into the Sierra. But we had a lot more downhill progress to make, finding many more ravines in this portion, and the infrastructure to support crossing them, signaling a brief quarter of a mile of pavement before turning off on our last dirt segment of the day, taking Soquel Meadow Rd for 4.5 miles that started out wide and smooth, but entering through Gray's Mountain Campground brought us our last bit of climbing as well as our choppiest conditions of the day, with the setup factoring in for less than a mile. And we were tempted to explore that cool looking road across from us, but we were ready to transition into the final phase of off-roading, making it the last time I get dirty while in the drops, that while not of the champagne variety of our previous section, still providing much gravitational force fun, as it's really glass half full for what the Sierra has to offer here, saying goodbye to dirt and logic for not stopping at the aid station, exiting out back onto Vert Road, about a half mile of elevation before where we left it previously, but all that would change quickly, leaning into some speed limit boundaries, making the scenery disappear almost too fast. With a brief interlude back on Malham Ridge Road, we touched down into the heart of Bass Lake, which was hard to locate this water body from the east side, being punctuated by so many homes of the desirable variety, but development was far more scarce on the west, that just looking at it made you feel 10 degrees cooler, thanks to it being built around the turn of the century, with these scenic views, a byproduct of hydroelectricity, covering 5 miles of flatness along the west side of Bass Lake, having the distance really tempt you to jump in that water. While near its end, the Grizzly provided a different type of wetness, offering a beer stop if you couldn't hold off for another 7 miles. But we were eager to roll back into town, passing by the front of the reservoir where the rail used to sit on its crest, meaning it made sense leaving it things got less flat, which helped explain that we'd be passing under this flume that was flowing downstream from the dam, making our way into town in just minutes, and soon recognizing our earlier traffic circle that, to be fair, didn't come with instructions, returning to Town Hall as riders started to come in, ready to grab a big afternoon serving of these stacked Indian tacos as we cooled down with the crew, and Tony with his deserved smile for this great Grizzly ride. A great day of riding today. I mean, first of all, you look down, you've done all this elevation, but it's not that much of a strain. Railroad grades are the way to go, and definitely for the first half, knocked it out so quickly. Came back, felt with relative ease. At the same time, it's September, it's still so green up here. It's a little introduction to fall, so yeah, a great day of riding. Anyways, go support us. Hit the subscribe button, or go to our shop, or support us on Patreon so we can give you more from the state of dirt.